If you've driven a car any amount of time in your life, I'm sure you've come up with situations where you've basically failed. You've gone down a one-way street the wrong direction, you've gone into a narrow alley or something and gotten totally stuck, you've been in a parking lot where you couldn't figure out how to get your car out of it. There are lots of situations when you're driving, just like with real life, where you tend to fail. And one of the sort of hallmarks of humanity and our flexibility is that we figure out ways out of failing, most of the time at least. So it seems that full self-driving is never going to be level 5 completely until cars can actually fail and recover from it. And guess what? Full self-driving beta 10 looks like it's about to do that. For those of you interested in investing, check out Webull, an amazing platform for buying and selling stocks, and now cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and others. Open an account and get a free stock valued at up to $200, and fund your account and get another free stock valued at up to $1,600. Check out the link in the description and help the channel at the same time. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. So before I start my basic topic, I want to give you a little notification that at the end of this video, there's going to be a political rant. I usually stay away from politics, but the whole situation with union construction and things like that outside of the United States has got me kind of pissed off. So I'm going to talk about that, but I'm going to put a break in the timeline and I'll let you know about it so that I won't, waste your time or get you upset if you don't agree with my opinion. So just look for the timeline break and just ignore that if you're getting there. So anyway, on to the topic at hand. This video was inspired by two things. Number one was watching AI Driver in particular, but other people also driving their beta 10.0 software and looking at how their Tesla was driving and how specifically it was driving when it was set up to fail or when it actually did fail, and how it was recovering from that in really interesting and very kind of human ways. So that was one thing. The other was a couple of tweets from Elon Musk, and I have a feeling the thumbnail is going to have to do with a UFO and a Tesla. We'll see how it goes. I always do the thumbnail after I record the video, so I'm not sure exactly what it'll look like. But anyway, I wanted to read Elon Musk's tweets because I think that they actually have a bearing on this as well. So this is from September 13th, and it starts with Elon Musk saying, "Full Self-Driving 10 predicts height from video pixels directly without needing to classify groups of pixels into objects. In principle, even if a UFO crashed on the road right in front of you, it would still avoid the debris. Some work still needed to tune sensitivity." So first of all, just as a little aside, that first sort of paragraph that he wrote about there, or half of the tweet, whatever, that it looks like what they're doing is they're actually projecting, right? This is part of the whole vision stack instead of radar, is that Teslas are projecting out to individual pixels in images and attempting through triangulation, I assume, or something like that, to estimate the height of individual pixels. I think what this means is if you see something in the road, it's kind of unclear where this tweet came from, and I didn't necessarily see a tweet thread that he was responding to. But I think the idea is basically if you see something like a dead squirrel in the road, I don't know why that was the thing that came to mind, but basically you as a human being know that it's only sticking up a couple of centimeters, right? It's just this lump or something. Let's call it a pine cone in the road instead. That seems like a nicer thing instead of a dead squirrel. But anyway, so you see a pine cone in the road and you know it's only sticking up a few centimeters off of the road surface, and so it's completely safe for your car to drive over that. Whereas if you see something that's, a large rock in the road, right? The car needs to understand without using radar, without bouncing signals off of it, it needs to go like, oh, that rock that's in the road is sticking up like a half a meter and I better damn well either stop or get out of the way. That's basically what's going on in this circumstance. So essentially what he's saying is that, of course, Tesla Vision has to figure out how to project pixel height, how to figure out how far something is off the road based only on vision instead of radar. And that's a tricky subject. So then, of course, the second half of this tweet gets into one of Elon Musk's favorite things. He talks a lot about this. He talks about how if something as bizarre as a UFO crashing on the road in front of you happened, that the car, even though the Tesla had never seen this before, should be able to handle this sort of situation. And then, of course, in true Elon fashion, he had to continue with this thread and make it provocative. "I'm not saying there are UFOs, but there are UFOs." So, of course, this made me think of Matt Dowd and PBS Space Time, which I love, by the way. You guys are amazing. But anyway, he always says it's never aliens it's aliens. So basically Elon Musk was using that same sort of formula. I think he's just being provocative here, but who knows? Teslas are recording an awful lot of data, so maybe there are actually situations where they're actually seeing things that are flying around that nobody can quite figure out what they are. One would think if they had this, that they would release a giant data dump and they would say like, hey, look at all these crazy things that our cars have seen over the years and try to figure out what they are. Now, I personally very much believe that there is life off this planet. I don't believe, given the vast interstellar distances, that they're here. So I think that there is life other places, including in our solar system. I have a feeling that Mars even might have some that's still alive. I almost definitely think that there was life there at one point. I think that the icy moons with water underneath them, almost surely have some sort of life in them. We'll see, of course. Hopefully NASA will get funded enough that they can actually send out missions. And by the way, Elon Musk, the Angry Astronaut, has asked you to send another mission to Pluto. I think that would actually be really cool, but I think you could also send one to Europa or something as well. I think, going back to that sort of Victorian era privately funded space mission, well, not space missions in the Victorian era, but anyway, missions to explore things. It would be a really, really nice model. There are a lot of billionaires with an awful lot of money in the world right now, and they have more disposable cash than NASA does to do some sort of fundamental research. Now, of course, this is not commercially viable because who's going to pay for something like that? But if you want to spend a few $1 billion to put something on a Falcon Heavy and send it to Europa or to Pluto, that would be amazing. Not that Elon's listening to me, but if you are, I think that would be an amazing use of your funds and the time that you have on this planet to help us figure out whether there really is life off this planet. Okay, but anyway, what does this all have to do with graceful failure? All right, so graceful failure in my mind, and I've actually written about this in terms of neural networks before. I don't think I came up with the term graceful failure, but I really, really like the idea. What that means is that you are failing, right? So you're failing, but you're not failing in such a way that everything just blows up. The sort of traditional, computer way of dealing with things, because it's hard-coded, is, and I'm sure, again, programmers know what I'm talking about here. If you write something that doesn't work in a particular instance, it gets to that instance and then it either hangs or it throws an error or it shuts your computer down or does some horrible thing, right? That's not graceful failure. That's failing really, really badly. So a lot of coding, in fact, a lot of commercial software, a huge chunk, like more than 50% of the code is just written to make it fail gracefully in circumstances and to do error checking and things like that. Now, the thing I'm talking about specifically here is neural networks and neural network stacks. And I did a paper about this. I'll put a link to it in the description and throw up a picture here. But part of it was, it's image-based recognition, and my contention was that my methodology actually has more graceful failure than a lot of other ones, which is that basically it's trying to match different things, right? So if you give it a lion, a picture of a lion, it finds another picture of a lion in the library of pictures of lions that you've given it. So you've given it this massive library, and it might have 100 pictures of lions, and it's going to go out and it's going to find another one. The failure is, and specifically I did this, like trumpets. So it didn't have any pictures of trumpets in the library of images that I gave it, but if I gave it a trumpet, it would actually go find something. Weirdly enough, it had sextants in its library, but not trumpets. Sextants, of course, being those things that navigators would look through on boats. So anyway, what it did was it failed kind of gracefully. You gave it a picture of a trumpet, and it would attempt to find something that was kind of brass looking and tubular looking, and so it found pictures of sextants. That's what I call graceful failure, right? It has no way of achieving its goal because you didn't give it any pictures of trumpets in your library or your database, but you asked for it to find one that looks like that. And what it gives you is it gives you something that looks like that. And that is really cool. That is an important aspect of sort of human thinking, right? If you gave a human that same task, they would probably come up with something like that, or maybe a chandelier or something along those lines, right? Something that was sort of brass looking, had, kind of curvy lines to it, had tubes, etc. So this is the kind of thing that neural nets can actually do if programmed correctly. And as AI Driver noted in his driving around San Francisco, and he put it in harm's way, like he put it in situations where basically the autopilot couldn't win, just to see what it would do. And as opposed to just completely going like, oh crap, I don't know what to do, and just stopping in the middle of the road, it was failing gracefully. So here's just a really short clip, and I'll put a link to it in the description.
We have an upcoming right turn ahead that requires us to get over 2 lanes of traffic to make, but nobody's been letting us in. Autopilot does put on its turn signal a few times to give the lane changes a shot, but ends up canceling. It seems like it cancels lane changes attempts pretty early on now when something unpredictable happens, like in this case the stopped traffic that was ahead. I feel like older versions of autopilot would have still tried that lane change and tried to deal with the stopped cars ahead at the same time, and it seems to be doing a better job at focusing at one problem at a time now, if that makes any sense. Autopilot canceling this lane change as well because of these stopped cars, which I thought was dang impressive. This is the right turn we're supposed to make right here. Autopilot just cruises right on by and ignores the navigation route and continues straight. Navigation decides on a new route and wants to make the next right, but with all this traffic, there is just no way that's going to happen. And we just go right through this intersection again and continue forward despite the navigation path.
So as you can see here, it's trying to make a left turn and it can't. And instead of just failing and just stopping in the middle of the road and going like throwing up its virtual hands and saying, I don't know what to do, it just keeps going and it allows the planner to figure out, the navigation system to reroute itself. And so it eventually figures out how to get over into the lane to make the turn. But that's really, really cool. That's what a human being would do. I actually had that happen to me yesterday driving to work. I couldn't make the turn I needed to because I couldn't get in. So I just went past it, went to another turn and, corrected it after the fact. So this is critical to cars driving like humans, and it's super critical to being able to do L5 like robo-taxi level autonomy, because things will go bad sometimes, right? The cars are going to end up in situations where they're going to fail, and you have to be able to get out of those situations. Now, yeah, the cars still can't back up yet. Supposedly with 10.1, they actually will, and that's really cool because Elon said in a tweet that what they'll do is they'll kind of peek forward in situations where there's some cross traffic and a blocked view, and then what they'll do is they'll back up if it looks like traffic is coming at them. So that's a really, really cool technique that human beings use sometimes. I try not to because, the people behind you, you have to be careful about that, but it can work sometimes, right? You pull out a little too far and you're like, oh crap, I'm gonna get, somebody's gonna hit my nose of my car. So you just pull back a little bit. That sort of situation is really, really useful. So we'll see how that goes. And obviously these future iterations of 10. X and also 11 will be really critical to how Tesla's vision, how their vision of their full self-driving comes to pass. But I think it's really important that what we're seeing already with version 10 is that sort of human-like ability to deal with failure. That's really, really critical. And it really, makes me think, wow, I think Tesla is really close to solving full self-driving. Can't wait till I have a chance to use it, or at least drive in a car with it sometime soon, just to see how it works, because I would love to put it in harm's way too and let it try to figure out how to get out of. And I don't mean physical harm. I don't mean like it could actually crash into things or something like that, but put it into a situation where you're like 3 lanes over and you have to make a turn like right away. I'm thinking about my commute to work, right? There's like 3 lanes of heavy traffic and you have to get off on the highway to the right. And if you're all the way on the left with very little time to go, what do you do if you can't get all the way over there? So I'll be really curious to see how it actually handles that sort of situation. I expect from what I've seen from AI Driver and from Matt Lauer and from other people that it's going to handle it quite well and much, much better than the previous versions. But anyway, this is incredibly positive news and incredibly positive to see what Tesla is doing here and how the cars are handling this. So congratulations to Andrej Karpathy and team. It looks like you've done an amazing job, and this has only got, room to grow. It's got headroom from here. So 10.0 is just the beginning of the next wave of full self-driving. All right, so now on to the semi-political rant. I try to stay away from this on this channel, but this whole situation with the legislative body in the United States saying that they're going to give a $4,500 tax credit to union-built electric vehicles that don't have to be made in the United States is really outrageous in my mind. Now, I'm not going to take political sides on all this stuff. I think that the political system is totally broken, and I think that, both parties are really, really problematic. And I have my personal opinions about which one is better, but I think it's a fool's dilemma because we're being given a choice of 2 parties where that's not really what should be happening at all. But anyway, given that, the fact that we have this sort of corrupt system where, corporations or large, very rich individuals are allowed to give huge amounts of money to individual government entities and individual government officials is ridiculous. That's just corruption. And I mean, yes, there are probably some politicians who are not corrupt and actually stay above all this, but this sort of situation only lends itself to corruption. It's that sort of all power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? That sort of phrase. But basically, if you throw enough money at somebody, their principles are going to go away no matter where they started. And that's a sad statement about reality. So again, here I'm not favoring either side, but what I am saying is that I, right, and you, if you live in the United States, are giving money to people who are working in Mexico out of the United States tax pool of money. And it's not like we have a huge excess of money in this country anyway. I think that our debt just passed the GDP, which is incredible, right? These are very worrying signs, and the fact that we're giving tax credits to people who are not even in the United States. By the way, I think Mexican people, I've visited, I know an awful lot of Mexican people. You are lovely people, and I have no problem with, people building cars in Mexico if that makes economic sense. But don't give US taxpayers money to people who are working in Mexico or to companies that are outsourcing jobs from the United States. And who is building cars in the United States? Oh, Tesla is, right? Along with many, many other companies, right? There's a lot of foreign companies. There's a lot of Toyota and Hyundai and etc. who are building cars in the United States. But so, all of that's going on and people are building cars in the US. So this money should be going to manufacturers who are making cars in the United States, not to union cars being built out of the country. And this is, just a giant middle finger to Tesla, obviously, because they're the only ones who are getting screwed over by this situation. So anyway, $4,500 is ridiculous. And by the way, if you want to hear my very naive solution to this problem of the two-party system, that is to abolish the two-party system and have as many parties as we can and have to do coalition governments. I think that it requires compromise. It doesn't allow people to become iconoclasts and to become so hard set in their ways. Something that a lot of people, even in the United States, don't know is that the Republican and Democratic parties are private. They are not for the public good. They are private corporations. So these things exist to keep themselves in business, essentially, right? That's what a corporation does ultimately. It tries to make a profit so that it can stay in business to keep going. That's what these things are doing. They're corporate entities. They're trying to stay in existence. All of that should be completely blown up. Of course, also the whole situation with people being able to donate large sums of money to individuals and individual parties is also completely broken. All of that stuff, it's never going to happen, right? This system is so completely entrenched and corrupt, it will never happen. But what needs to happen is, an explosion needs to happen. All that stuff needs to go away, and anybody needs to be able to run for any government position. My thought is that what should happen is that we taxpayers should give everybody from running from, city council all the way up to president of the United States, you should get a certain amount of money from us taxpayers for each of these positions to run for governmental positions, and that's it. You shouldn't be allowed to have any other income source, right? So if you get a certain amount of money, let's say for the president, it's $1 million or something, you use that $1 million to do whatever you want to do with it, advertising, going to places, whatever. And that's it. That's all you get. And that puts everybody on a level playing field. That means that somebody who's not wealthy or not backed by wealthy people could actually get a governmental position in these places. And that is all to the good. And the fact of having multiple different political parties as opposed to only two would also be all to the good. So anyway, I'm sure I'll catch a lot of hell about a lot of this stuff, but I thought, it was appropriate to wear the Don't Mess with Tesla t-shirt today. Again, not making a political statement or anything about that. I actually have some serious issues with what's going on in Texas right now, but I thought, don't mess with Tesla, not Texas. So anyway, just to be specific. Anyway, I'm sure I'll catch hell in the comments about a lot of this stuff, but I told you could skip this if you wanted to, so you were warned. All right, anyway, I hope you found this episode fun and enjoyable and informative and thought-provoking, at least the first half of it. Remember, graceful failure is critical to us human beings. Failure is an option. Failure is okay as long as we recover from it. And it's the same thing for full self-driving. Anyway, if you did enjoy the episode, definitely like it so other people can find it, and consider subscribing for more of this. As always, a huge shout out to my patrons on Patreon. Thank you all so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. You mean the world to me. And if you're interested in some awesome merch, check out the link in the description. We've got the Tesla Bot t-shirt, which is super popular these days. Don't mess with Tesla. Lots of other t-shirts, tumblers, mugs, etc. So check out the link in the description and help the channel out. And for those of you interested in investing, check out Webull, an amazing platform for buying and selling stocks, and now cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and others. Open an account and get a free stock valued at up to $200, and fund your account and get another free stock valued at up to $1,600. Check out the link in the description and help the channel at the same time. Thank you. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the link, you can see how going shopping for a Tesla, a solar roof, a Powerwall, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. And as always, feel free to ask me questions in the comments or at my email address, which is drknowitallknows@gmail.com. Till next time, bye-bye.